Thanks to Labor First for sponsoring today's episode of Better Bad Ideas. Now let's get into it.
I'm Sean O'Brien, General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
Put your helmets on, buckle your chin straps. It's a full contact sport.
We're going to find out who has a better bad idea. Well, listen, we have Senator Markwayne Mullin today on Better Bad Ideas, and I just have to make one statement.
Better bad ideas.
Stand your butt up. Do you remember that moment?
Oh, I have a kid that wrestles with my son at the University of Oklahoma that has it tattooed on his chest.
As a result of that?
Yes.
Did you copyright that?
No, I didn't copyright
Yeah,
that.
you were selling T-shirts, weren't you?
I didn't copyright it. Yeah, we sold like 40,000 T-shirts.
So that was funny. So anybody that's listening or watching, you know Senator Markwayne Mullin and myself, our first exchange, never met you before.
Yeah.
My first time ever testifying in a Senate hearing. And, you know, intimidating, not going to lie to you. You know, I never did anything like that. So we get the opposite.
Really? That was your first time to ever testify?
Yeah. And you blew it up.
You handled yourself pretty good.
Oh, you did all right yourself.
I mean, of course. I'm a professional. I'm kidding.
So,
I'm kidding.
So here's the best. I go into this thing and you know, for us, I have a great team. They prepare the brief. Yeah. What do you put in like a week before or whatever, and before your testimony?
Right. You're sworn in, or you're
and then
sworn in testimony.
Yeah, and then you got to condense it to like 2 or 3 minutes. So we have all this opposition research that we do, and we weren't too worried about the Dems because we knew most of them. We really didn't know a lot of the Republicans outside of Josh Hawley, and I think who else was on that committee at the time? Senator Cassidy. So the only one we didn't have opposition research was you. I didn't know anything about you. And so when you start, we just finished the UPS agreement, negotiated. So when you start going on about the UPS stuff, and then I'm like, who is this guy? And I'm thinking these things are supposed to be friendly, wasn't going to be anything. And then boom, it pops off, right? I was like, who the hell is this guy? And then we went at it back and forth. And Bernie Sanders, remember him?
Oh, but no, Bernie, his head turned like a color of an apple.
It was like getting yelled at by your grandfather coming in late at night. But that was our first kind of exchange. And then, you know, I took it to another level outside after the first hearing. You respond back, and we went back and forth for about a month or two. And then we ended up having another hearing, and you come in prepared. You had the easel all ready to go, and we just started going at it again. And the one thing that I liked about the whole thing is, even after the first time, you know, I grew up in a neighborhood, and most of friendships begin after conflict. Yeah. And like I knew.
There's a mutual respect.
Right. And I knew like we were going to be friends at some point. But it was pretty funny though.
Yeah. Well, it was fun. Looking back, it was funny, right? I think the most common is this is the time, this is the place.
Right.
That's the one that gets the most comments. But if people ask me, was I prepared to say, I wasn't. I actually wasn't.
Well, you didn't have a tie on the first time, right? I think.
Probably not. But I don't wear ties.
Yeah,
a lot.
No, but I was like, everybody's in a tie.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at him, sizing him up, and I'm like, this guy came without a tie. Like he really wants to go.
No, I don't. I hate ties. And the only time you'll see me with a tie is when we're voting. Mm-hmm. So we have votes today, obviously. But I wouldn't. I typically don't wear a tie because I feel like anyways, I don't like suits either. But that particular hearing, I wasn't for sure where it was going to go.
Right.
But I wasn't prepared. Like I didn't plan on going that way with it. It just happened. But mutual respect. President Trump loves you. Yeah. And with a tremendous amount of respect. He likes the tough guy persona. He likes a guy that's a straight shooter. You're a straight shooter. And so after he met with you, that's when he called and he says, hey, you two will be friends. Right. And so he says, you all need to talk together. And it was funny because when he tried to negotiate it, then you ended up choosing this Italian restaurant that was right behind my house. Literally. I mean, like I could walk out my house, walk across the parking lot, walk into this Italian restaurant. I had no idea it was even there.
Really?
And I didn't know. I mean,
I live right around the corner from
it was literally right around the corner. You know,
it's funny. Like people were trying to promote this big fight between us, right?
Which would have been a great fundraiser, by the way.
And I'm like, I'll see him in a park or something, like, you know, typical neighborhood stuff, right? Not knowing literally, like we live a block away from each other.
Yeah, right around the corner.
And when he said, oh, I live right over here, I'm like, oh, this actually could have probably happened, right? And but it was fine. You know, it actually worked out well because you know, there's things we're gonna agree to disagree on,
right?
But there's things that, you know, we can work together on. And I was just amazed at, looking back, how many people were just trying to promote like this chaos and divide, even though we already had the two exchanges. It was just like people were feeding off of it. But I'll tell you one thing: the good thing about it was, I mean, we were headline news for a long time.
Yeah, but Sean, I think what happened is that I wasn't mad. It was just a matter of fact. It was just business.
Right.
You took it the same way. It's just a matter of business. But it's two guys that handled themselves like men used to handle things.
Right.
And DC isn't used to that.
Oh,
like we weren't cursing at each other. It was just like, okay, it's what it is. But that's a mutual respect that you can get. And I think that's why, you know, politically we may not line up on everything,
right, but
there's a mutual respect behind it because, as you said, sometimes friendship starts with conflict,
right,
because you get a respect about it. And that's when the president said that I think you two would get along because he saw the personality. And when we first sat down and talked to that restaurant, I had so much respect for you because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't
either. I was walking in there because our chief of staff, I think, kind of negotiated that to go in there. And when we walked in, like, I was tense, I'm not going to lie, and you're tense. And I'm like, all right, let's look at worst case scenario. If it pops off, it's a small place. It'll go down for about 5 seconds, and then we'll be out.
I was going to say 5 minutes is a long fight.
Yeah,
I've been in those long fights.
I
like
love
that.
these guys that go, like, especially in my neighborhood, like, hey, I was in a fight one time for 5 minutes. I'm like, no, you weren't.
No.
I've been in 3 seconds.
I've been in the cage for 5 minutes in rounds, and that's a long freaking time. 60 seconds is a real long fight. But anyways, when I first walked in there, it was kind of funny. I've never told you this. I walked in and, you know, you're sitting there with one of your guys and stuff. This is a small Italian restaurant with 5 tables inside, maybe, right? And I go, I'm coming out here with concrete shoes. I've heard the Jimmy Hoffa story.
Plus, you know, two El Salvadorian brothers on that. They're my boys, right?
Yeah.
They're awesome. Yeah. And so I could see that. But I'm sitting there too going, all right, this guy's coming in, like, because we exchanged some good stuff on social media, even though we're better than that, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
But it was fun. And truth be told, I didn't even design half of it. You know, I'm sure, you know, your team did the same thing, right? But when you put out the cachet of guns on your ranch, I'm like, all right, this guy's serious now. Like, all right, all right. Yeah, you didn't know that either.
But you know, I don't know if you remember or not. Because when you first met, I had so much respect for you because the first thing you did when I walked in there, and it was tense, right? We go
the second hearing, right?
No, when we met at the Italian restaurant.
Oh, Italian restaurant.
Yeah, we met at the Italian restaurant. Last time we had talked was at the hearing. Now we're at the Italian restaurant. President Trump, you had met with President Trump. Trump called me, said, hey, I want you two to meet. I think you guys will get along, right? I walked in the restaurant and you stood up. And you're in, you know, neither one of us are in a suit. I think I'm in a t-shirt. I don't know.
My sneakers were double knotted because you never want to lose your sneakers in a fight.
This is very true, right? And I don't know what I was wearing, but I was wearing probably some type of work boot. But you stood up and you shook my hand immediately.
Yeah.
And he said, I mean, I would never forget. You go, listen, I read everybody's bio but yours, and I should have done that. And we sat down. And we had an 1.5 hour long conversation about your family, about how you grew up, about how I grew up. And I think there was even though we grew up in, you know, you grew up in the neighborhood, I grew up in the ranch. You grew up in the city, I grew up in the country. But there was a mutual respect that goes, there's a foundation here to build something on, which is why the president saw something that thought that we could work it out. The president respects, he respects, I don't want to say a tough guy persona, but he does. And it's not the persona. Straight shooter. Someone that will just stand their ground and say what they need to say. And it was a tremendous amount of respect that started from there. And we've talked, my wife at first called me a sellout. You know, because my wife's a professional kickboxer too. She's like, how are you? What are you
I
doing?
got criticized. I got criticized left and right.
Oh yeah.
What, are you afraid of him? I'm like, I'm not afraid of anybody.
Well, I think
we have to do business.
You said if we fought, you was going to fight me like the Irish something and hit me.
No, I said, look, and you might be MMA, you might be jiu-jitsu, all that shit.
Yeah.
And I took karate for 4 years, but I haven't done it since I was 21 years old. But I said, look, I'm just going to do Irish karate. I'm going to put my head down and go till I can't go anymore.
Or hit me in a crosswalk with your Cadillac.
At 80 miles an hour.
I laughed hard. I was like, fair.
That's what we do, right? But on a serious note, I think we've worked together well.
Yeah.
Since, we've had discussions, and I think we talk more than people think.
Yeah.
And one of the examples of working together and collaborating was when the nomination of Laurie Chavez de Reamer.
That's right.
I mean, unsolicited, you called me up and said, "Hey, you like her? Are you guys good with her?" I said, "Absolutely." He goes, "All right, let's work together on this," which I thought was great because it showed a couple things. One, what we've been trying to do as an organization or as a leader, myself personally, is work together across the aisle to find common ground and work on the issues we can work on. And if we can't agree on it, let's not throw mud at each other and say, "Hey, listen, we'll figure something out at some point." But that was a really defining moment, I think. And we demonstrated to people like, hey, you can have your disagreements. You can argue, fight. But when there's something that is very good for this country, let's work together. And she was very good to the country. I mean, you walked in and you said, this is an example. Sean and I agreed on this. Sean and I worked on this. Sean and I endorsed this. Yeah. Now, I thought that was great. I thought that was a demonstration of how people should collaborate, even if they don't agree on certain other things.
And it goes back to the White House too. I hate to keep bringing up President Trump, but I had to because he said, "Why don't you and Sean get together and find me a Secretary of Labor that you guys can work with?"
Right.
Like, okay. And he, by the way, he didn't give any pushback on that.
Right.
He was like, if you guys agree with them, then we'll do that. And like I said, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump does either, but you're a leader of the largest union in the country, all right? And you're the president of the Teamsters. You build things and you move things,
right?
And and there's President Trump understands the importance of it. You understand the importance of it. That sometimes it's bigger than politics. Sometimes we have to do what's best moving forward. You got members that you need to make sure have a job every single day, get paid well. They can go home and raise their family doing it. We have an economy that we need to make sure is moving in the right direction. And when we can come together and work on that, sometimes disagree on some political issues, but say we're working better. We're working for two goals: one, get the economy moving; two, make sure your members are taken care of too. Hey, there's common ground there.
Right.
Let's move forward.
Well, the one thing that we have in common when you describe those two factors you just described is a third factor. You have constituents in your state that elect you to represent them.
That's right.
I have members in my union that elect me to represent them.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that's probably the most important part of the equation because without them, we don't have these jobs.
Which, by the way, people love it. And then you got people that hate it.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, I got some constituents that love the idea. You and Sean are getting along. How in the world are you guys getting along? Well, I never took it personal when I was fighting professionally. Yeah. There's guys that I fought professionally against that I still talk to. I mean, literally still talk to all the time. In fact, one of the guys sent me a text message this weekend and said, "Hey, some of us old guys are going to get together and dust the gloves off on like October 5th and whatever Saturday, sometime in October. Why don't you come in and spar with us? We'll talk about has-beens." And these guys that these guys that I used to train with and fight against years ago, but because there's a mutual amount of respect. It's the same thing here, that you're not going to make everybody happy, but at the same time, if we got something that we find common, we find a direction to move forward, we can just do it. And understand that there's going to be people that criticize you no matter what, but that's what a leader does.
Social media is probably the worst thing in the world, isn't it? Although I have noticed you are like a TikTok sensation now. Every time on my goddamn feed, you keep popping up, and I'm like, I can't get away from this guy.
We just opened TikTok. How long ago? Thursday night.
Thursday night. You got 400 videos on there.
Yeah, well, we have I don't know how many followers. I don't know. It grew fast. It grew very quick.
Yeah, but social media is crazy. But social media is like an open platform for like people to hide and say stupid shit that they would never say to your face.
But you can't argue with crazy. But that's why I don't read my comments hardly at all. Very seldom.
Right.
Because until you're willing to come up and say it to my face, it really doesn't mean anything. And honestly, I don't want what you say online to make my day, to dictate my attitude during the day, right? Not that you're not relevant. Everybody's relevant. But it's a lot easier to say it, as you said, in a basement of your parents' house than it is to come up and have an actually gentleman agreement. Not confrontational, but have a gentleman agreement, because sometimes we can agree to disagree, or sometimes we might find common ground like you and I did.
Right.
And that's a good thing. You can find common ground to step on and move forward. But because you say it online, I'm not going to allow it to mess with my head, because I'm going to make the assumption, and I'm not kidding, and my wife says, bless your heart. The reason why I don't read my comments is because I'm going to assume that everybody loves me. That way I approach you.
Well, I can tell you they don't. I can actually tell you they don't like you.
Well, my wife says, bless your heart. That's a Southern thing that says, are you serious? But
so we know what we say?
Yeah.
In the Northeast?
What?
All due respect. You know what that means? When I start a sentence like, hey, all due respect, that means like, go F yourself.
Yeah, yes, I get that.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
but my point is that when I meet you and you've been saying horrific things about me and I don't know it, and I treat you with kindness, I'm going to take
throws the game right off.
Right off.
Throws the game right off.
And
it's hard though. It's tough though. Like reading. So I have, you have kids like my kids' age, and I've had the pleasure of meeting your family in Oklahoma.
You did.
Great people. And but your kids read this stuff. My kids read it, and my oldest, he's a great kid. He's union plumber.
Good.
And
I like him already.
Yeah, union plumber. And but he's a aspiring comedian. So he's into all the social media stuff, the shorts, the sizzle reels, and all that stuff. And he'll read some of the stuff, and he started arguing with people on it. And I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Good
Don't
advice.
read it. He's like, Dad, they're lying. I said, people are going to lie. Don't worry about it. It's nothing you can do about it. But to your point, that philosophy is great, because look, if I read, there's like 2 or 3 people that are on my radar every day because they got something to say every single day. And it's like, I can't wait to see them. But then I'm like, I don't even care about them. They're not relevant in my life.
That's right.
And it's going to be tough.
But what are you going to do? Right?
No, you can't do anything.
That's my point.
I've
never seen anybody on social media ever change their mind on an argument on social media.
This episode is brought to you by Labor First, the leader in healthcare navigation and advocacy for plan sponsors, union members, and retirees. Navigating healthcare isn't easy, especially when it comes to Medicare, and it shouldn't fall on our retirees' shoulders alone. That's where Labor First comes in. They work one-on-one with members to help them understand their benefits, resolve issues, and get the care they've earned. From answering tough questions to fixing billing problems, Labor First is in your corner every step of the way. No call centers, no runaround, just healthcare advocates who actually care. Labor First was founded by a proud Teamster son and grandson for over 60 years. His father and grandfather led Teamsters Local 837, now Local 107 in Philadelphia, with pride, purpose, and grit. That same union spirit runs through everything Labor First does today. Now, hundreds of union health plans trust Labor First as a true partner, delivering results, supporting members and retirees, and never forgetting who they're working for. When it comes to protecting what your members have earned, Labor First stands with you. Visit laborfirst.com to learn more. This episode is brought to you by Catches Law Group, proud advocates for injured workers and their families since 1986. If you've been hurt on the job, navigating the workers' comp system can feel like fighting an uphill battle. That's where Catches Law comes in. They have recovered over $3 billion for hardworking people just like you, and they don't back down when your rights are on the line. They know what it means to stand shoulder to shoulder with unions and workers across the country. Because at Catches Law, it's not just about compensation, it's about justice. To learn more, visit catcheslaw.com. That's KECHES law.com. And I've got to tell you, I've had the personal privilege to work side by side with Catches Law Group for over 30 years. I've watched them fight tirelessly on behalf of injured workers throughout America, and they are the best of the best. They make certain that all of injured workers and their families get the justice that they deserve. To learn more, please visit catcheslaw.com. That's KECHES law.com. No, and it's funny, you get the same people, and it has nothing to do with Dem, Republican, or Independent. You've got the same people that are all preaching the same stuff, but they're contradicting themselves at the same time. Like, we shouldn't have this divide. Everybody should work together, which I think is great. But then on the next breath, they're attacking the Democrats, they're attacking the Republicans, they're attacking everybody. So what they're saying and what they're doing are actually two different things.
Or the ones that on our side that say Congress needs to act more like a business. Okay, fine. What does business owners do every day? When you're working with the company that you're representing, that you're trying to represent for your labor force, what are you doing? You're negotiating.
We're talking every day.
Every day, and you're negotiating every day.
Right.
Every single day, you're negotiating. But if you negotiate, sometimes in politics, you're a sellout.
Well, that's the problem.
You're compromising. You're a rhino in the Republican world. And
so right now, what's going on? I mean, you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Right. You're in the thick of this potential shutdown, and it's all over negotiation.
Yep.
Right. So I look at it from my perspective as a labor leader and as a person that negotiates the biggest contracts in the country with some of the largest employers. Your goal is always to get an agreement. Your goal is never to strike, right, in our world. And your goal is always to let's do what's in the best interest of the people that we get paid to represent. Now, the same holds true for what's going on right now in Congress, right? And it just seems like right now it's like the American people, again, put in the middle because there's an appetite not to get an agreement. Is that accurate?
Sure. I got to fight. You fight. They're looking for a fight for no other reason but to fight. So I don't mind fighting. You don't mind fighting. I mean, fighting's part of our, it's how we were raised.
DNA.
Right. But I want to fight knowing there's a path to victory, and then knowing what victory looks like. We're just fighting for the spite of fighting, and there's no positive outcome, then it's kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, and this is where we're facing the shutdown is, what is victory? Describe to me what victory looks like, because when we shut down, every federal employee that's part of a union,
right,
military, everybody is affected. So on October 1st, every military paycheck will go out and they'll be paid in full. October 2nd, every federal employee paycheck will go out and they'll be fully paid. But say we're in it for 2 weeks, the next payroll is 15th and 16th. Payroll doesn't go out. So who are you hurting?
You're hurting the people in the middle.
And
you're hurting the military. You're hurting the union workers.
Yeah.
And the administration is getting criticized because they publicly said, if we shut the country down, I'm laying everybody off. People don't want to hear that either.
They don't want to hear it, but at the same time, the president's goal is to shrink government by 10%, because we're a bloated government. We've increased, a lot of agencies increased 200% since COVID. Government, the economy hasn't grown 200%.
And by the way, hasn't every president, the last 4 presidents, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, wanted to have a smaller government, right?
You go all the way back to Bush, 43. Obama made this very clear. I mean, he made that during his campaign speech that he was going to shrink the size of government. Then you had Trump 45. Biden actually said it too, but Biden came in COVID and blew it up. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying what happened.
Right? No, the facts.
Yeah,
right?
and so what we're trying to do is take government back to the size it was prior to COVID pandemic. And when you really look at it, what's the argument here? What we're facing in the shutdown is we're doing a clean CR. What a clean CR, continuing resolution, means there's nothing attached to it. It means that we're operating on December 20 or on October 29th, the same way we're operating on October or September 30th, the same way we're going to be September 29th, September 30th, the same way we're going to be operating October 1st.
So under the CR that's proposed on the table right now, it's status quo.
Status quo. What the Democrats are wanting to do is they're wanting to fight because...
What do they want to fight over? I mean, we don't have the inside knowledge of what's going on.
So
although I'm reading this morning online because, we're concerned because I've got members and I'll tell you, the administration has been criticized because they've laid people off, closed, shut down stuff. But I have members that work for the federal government that haven't been affected, Teamster members. And so my concern is that they're going to have their jobs and keep their jobs. But what are the issues from the Democrats? Because I read this morning that the Republicans are accusing the Democrats of, wanting to give undocumented illegal immigrants health insurance. So,
that's accurate. But what that means is during the COVID pandemic, they did a premium tax, which is attached to ACA, Affordable Health Care or Obamacare, whatever you want to call it. And what they did is it underneath ACA, it allowed you to get a certain subsidy up to 400 times the poverty line. right? You follow me?
Yep.
So the current average poverty line inside the United States is 128,000, according to the ACA, which is 400 times the poverty line. So you take it times it by basically 4, and you get to where you're at, which 138. I say 400 times, 4 times above poverty line. And during COVID, they waived all that. They put everybody's accepted, regardless of your income level, regardless of your status, legal status.
Which was probably the right thing to do back then, right?
Back then, I'd say it, because a lot of Republicans probably supported it, a lot of them didn't, but I'm just saying that it was just waived all fees. But there was also no checks and balances to find your legal status if you approved for it, if you didn't approve for it. What they're wanting to do, what Democrats want to do right now, is keep that status quo. Well, our argument is COVID pandemic's over. Why is the taxpayer paying for this? Why are we subsidizing insurance companies? That the reason why we did it at the time was because they were saying they couldn't afford it and they were going to go out of business. So we subsidized their premiums. Now these same insurance companies are making between 15 and 25% margins, like profit. I'm all about capitalism. I'm fine with companies making a profit, but not at the same time that the taxpayer is subsidizing.
Well, I have a problem. I don't have a problem with people making money as long as everybody shares in the wealth,
yes.
Right? So when you look at these insurance companies, and we deal with it all the time, we're negotiating health insurance and health care and everything else. You look at the cost of premiums, you look at the executive salaries, and then you look at the people that are dependent upon this insurance. They're the ones taking the brunt of it, like my members or like employees that are not represented. All the while, these insurance companies are flourishing, flush with cash.
Yeah, and once again, private companies are private companies. They pay what they want to pay. Mm-hmm. I don't disagree with that, but there shouldn't be subsidies from the federal government offsetting at the same time. And you're right. When I first started business 28 years ago, I've provided insurance for my very first employee, and insurance was $72 a month for full.
That was your cost.
That's what it cost me per employee, because I paid 100% of their insurance. Mm-hmm. $72 per month. It was full insurance, had like a $25 copay, $250 deductible. Today, my insurance doesn't even exist. You can't even get that plan. But my plan has cost me roughly $800 per employee. The company, $800 per employee. It's a $5,000 deductible.
Right. Who can afford that if you're a working person?
Yeah, and it's 80-20.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It's horrible insurance.
So
right?
People are going to make a decision on, should I pay my tuition, my car payment, my mortgage, and not go to the doctors because I can't afford it?
Well, what happens most of the time is my employees will use the insurance and then they can't afford a deductible.
Right.
And then we end up having to either loan them the money or bonus them the money, which depending on which way
I got a better bad idea.
Yeah.
We'll sign them up, make them Teamsters. We got the best affordable insurance in the world.
Yeah.
All right.
Not sure we're going to go down that path, but that's an agree to disagree. But my point is that the Democrats right now, they're saying instead of doing a clean CR for 7 weeks, they're willing to shut down the government for a premium tax that doesn't even expire till the end of the year. This doesn't expire till December 31st, but they're choosing to make the fight right now. We're saying, why are we doing this?
And I got to believe, and this is inside baseball, so you might be limited on what you can say and not say, but I've got to believe, I've been in a million negotiations.
Yeah.
Like I said, we negotiated the largest deal, UPS $30 billion deal, and we negotiate across the table. And then usually there's some discussion outside of the room where I would have company people come to me and say, come on, we got to get a deal. We're really not passionate about this issue, but we have to keep it on the table. Is there any back channeling going on? Are you getting feedback from Dems? And look, I get you're on a team. Each one of us are on a team, and you've got to support your leader of that team at the time. But then there comes a time where you're like, all right, this lead is going down the wrong path. This really isn't that important. Is there any back channeling going on either side?
Yeah, I wouldn't say back channel. There's negotiations going on. I've been in negotiations since 6 o'clock this morning. I don't know when this airs.
I was too. I was trying to put these goddamn contact lenses in.
Yeah.
And I was trying to negotiate.
At 6 this morning?
I was already at the gym at 5.
Yeah. Well, it started at the gym and then we started taking it a little bit farther than that. But so since 6 o'clock this morning, we've been talking. The issue that you have I'm 100% pointing fingers here because it's true. I'm not making any accusations. This is true. Chuck Schumer is the one that's holding this thing up. That's why this is the Schumer shutdown.
So I guess my question is, a Democrat's coming to you saying, hey, we can get this thing done, but he's the problem.
Yes. And so they're actually going around trying to talk to Hakeem now. because Hakeem seems to be more reasonable. What's happened with Schumer is Schumer voted for this back in March. So just 6 months ago, by the way.
Voted for the same
The
status quo.
exact same CR. Not one word is changed. This is the exact CR, which he voted for 6 months ago. Now he's saying he won't support. Same thing. But back then he got railed by his base and in New York.
Railed by his base saying, you're a sellout.
Yes.
You're giving in to the Republicans. Why don't you fight back?
Giving into Trump. Their hatred towards Trump. Well, AOC.
So I guess that's the next question.
Well, but AOC
is it
jumped
Republican versus Democrat, or is it a Democrat versus Trump? Or Schumer versus Trump?
That's a good question. I think it's Schumer versus AOC. Because AOC, they started running polls, would beat Schumer by 20 points if she decided to challenge him. Schumer's attitude changed, and he's up for re-election this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So he's scared that AOC is going to challenge him, which is why he can't vote for this. This is now, mind you, Schumer's on record speaking about this over and over again, that a shutdown isn't good for America. Supporting CRs his entire career, like not just recently, but his entire career. It all changed when politics became real in his state. And now instead of him doing what is right for America, which is why, by the way, I never hired a single employee ever based on how they were registered to vote. And I've hired thousands of employees. I hired you because you were the best person for the job. This is also why I can get along with so many Democrats.
You say best person, most qualified.
Most qualified, best person, whatever. Yeah, same thing. The reason why I can get along with Democrats so good is because your state or your backyard elected you, not Oklahoma. Oklahoma may not elect you. Oklahoma never elect Pelosi.
Your first priority is your constituency.
Yes, follow your state. Like your first priority is your members.
Right.
So I don't agree. May not agree with you, but I can respect that you're duly elected by your constituents, that our founding fathers set up for you to be elected just the same way. So we may disagree, but that's fine. Where I get in trouble, where I get upset is when you start making political decisions. When you make decisions that's not best for America, not best for your state, but best for your career, we have a hard line. And what's happening right now is Schumer is holding the entire country hostage because he's afraid of AOC, because there's no way you can explain why you're not willing to support a 7-week clean CR, and you're saying it's because of premium tax that doesn't even expire until December 31st.
So if I had Chuck Schumer on here right now and I pose this question, you're being accused of causing this shutdown, what would he say?
I don't know. I can't justify crazy.
No, but I mean, what would he say?
I don't know. I don't know, because he's all over the map right now. He's not being consistent with who he's been. And that's what when you're making a political decision, you start moving with the wind everywhere the political arena is. And that's why you can't be consistent. So it's hard to predict what a guy's going to do when he's scared of his shadow.
So Republicans, when you're arguing, or you're negotiating, I should say, when you're negotiating in this arena, my concern always, because of my job, is how's this going to affect working people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would assume the Republicans are clear that if this shuts down, people are going to be laid off, government's going to shrink, these workers won't have a job, the military is going to be compromised, right? Are the Democrats taking the working people's platform about being laid off?
I would say a lot of them are. I'm saying right now their leadership isn't.
Okay.
That doesn't speak for the whole base. But here's our concern is, first and foremost, national security. So when you start affecting the military.
And this is publicized all over the world, by the way.
Oh, all over the world. You start affecting the military, and we're going to have military personnel that they don't get paid a whole lot anyways. I mean, they're living paycheck to paycheck. And you're going to say they're not going to get paid on the 15th, and yet they're literally deployed all over the world. They're going through boot camp. They're doing all kinds of stuff right now to protect you and I to be able to have a conversation like this. And we're not going to pay them. And then all the military contracts we have that's trying to be the best and advanced military in the world, we're pausing all that, and we're allowing China and Russia, our largest adversaries, to catch us. Because every day it's a race.
Well, it's
every
like anything
day.
else. If you're not getting paid, are you going to be happy with your job?
Yeah. Well, but all the federal contracts pause right now.
Right.
When we go into shutdown, nothing happens. Everything stops. And by the way, federal highway projects that everybody's upset about, you're not going to see any workers out there because we're going to be stopped.
And that's not something you would endorse. I mean, you are, even though we've had differences with right to work and everything else, you do support, I believe, infrastructure projects, keep
100%.
people working, project labor agreements on those jobs.
You know my background. Right. I've been in construction. I started plumbing, and then we got into everything after that. We started doing utility work, pad sites, HVAC, electrical work. Because
the prevailing wage was important, right?
Yeah, it's important because you got to be competitive. Mm-hmm. Here, the most important thing is you got to be competitive with your competitors, right? Mm-hmm. And if I want the best and the brightest, I've got to have a complete package. Now, I believe this is where sometimes you and I might disagree. I feel like I can pay better than my local union. I can provide better benefits, better retirement, better than and better income than my local union can. Right?
I would disagree with that, but
But what I'm saying is that may not be accurate in any place in the country. But I have to know my my market. Mm-hmm. Every market is different, and I would expect you to disagree with that. But ultimately, the end of the day, you and I are trying to do two things. One, we want our employees, you're wanting your members to be happy. We want them to be successful. As a business owner, I know that I'm only successful if my employees are successful. And they're only successful is if the company's successful. So we got to be in the boat. We got to be rowing in the same direction.
So I look at it from a different perspective. And this is a great conversation.
Yeah.
So I worked for a family-owned business. The Shaughnessy family. Fantastic. I went 18 years old, went to work for them.
That's when you was driving a truck?
I was hauling heavy equipment. I did my apprenticeship program through there. We were the largest crane company on the East Coast, family owned. And, we always had people that complained no matter what. And we were making good money. We were making great money. And, family run business. I'm still friends with the kids. The father was my guy. And I'd argue with him every day because I didn't enforce the contract as a steward. But when we went out to jobs, you'd have certain people that would complain. I'm like, listen, you know why these customers hire us? It's not because of the owners of the company. It's the job that we perform. They're just brokers. They set the deal up. We're going to be the reason why they retain us to come back because we're professional. We do the job, safely and get it done. No one gets hurt. We're the ones that sell ourselves. So that was always my philosophy. It wasn't about the company because people would be like, look at the Shaughnessy's. They're driving brand new BMWs. And I'm like, great, good for them. They're just brokers. I said, by the way, when we come in at 4 a.m, they're here. When we come back in at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock at night, they're here. So they're working just as many hours as we are. However, we're the ones that are going to retain the business because of the service that we provide.
But that you're actually talking about the same thing because you're right. They hire
Say
me.
that one more time.
We're actually saying the same thing on this one, and you're right from your perspective, but you've got to take the business perspective too and saying you have to be on the job because they hire you because they get along with you. The job foreman trusts you. That's why they keep coming back to you because they know when you say you're going to deliver, you're going to deliver. You're going to keep the job on schedule. You're going to keep it on time, and you're going to show up when you said you're going to show up. The business owner's perspective is that in order for that to take place, I got to make sure I'm paying my insurance. I got to make sure my bond is good. I got to make sure that I'm paying my payroll taxes. I got to make sure that I'm paying all my bills. I got to be hiring the front office correctly. And I've got to be able to fire correctly because I say you got to hire right and you got to fire right because one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. Mm-hmm. This is where the disagreement with employees and labor sometimes messes up. Because as an employer, you have to look at it, or as a union boss, you got to look at every employee.
Union leader. We don't like union boss.
Okay, union leader. I'll try to do better, but I still look at you as union boss. But say a union leader, you've got to protect every single employee exactly the same. And recently you just helped out somebody for us too. Right. But as a business owner, sometimes I got to get rid of that bad apple because he's making everybody's life miserable because he's not doing his job right. If there's no incentive for somebody that is busting their butt, that's why looking at this guy who's having 16 smoke breaks and 5 coffee breaks, shows up late, has a bad attitude, does his job halfway, and what's the incentive of the guy that's doing his job right? And so sometimes you have to have the flexibility to let a guy go.
Well, see, there's a misconception there because I look at it and I think 95% of union leaders around the country would look at it the same way. I want to go to work, give a fair day's work for fair day's pay. I want to work hard. There's a human element that goes along. You're right. Sometimes people beat the system, no matter whether union or non-union. But we enforce, we're the ones that have to have the conversations when members are screwing up, when they're not showing up for work, when they're not doing their job. The hard part is telling people, listen, you're going to lose your job. You keep going down this road. And sometimes we're a little bit more sympathetic because you got to deal with, maybe there's an addiction problem, maybe there's a mental health problem, maybe there's a family problem. And I'm sure you've dealt with the same thing.
Of course you do. You take that all into consideration.
And you give people chances upon chances upon chances.
Of course you do.
I mean, I think, the misconception is we protect people that don't deserve to work or have a job like that. We protect people that, may be vulnerable, may be getting taken advantage of. But if someone consistently, and that's why we have just cause language, that's why we have opportunities for people to get help. But sometimes there's no help. You can't help someone sometimes, and you've got to tell them, look, I can't take your case to arbitration because we've been down this road too many times with you. Maybe it's time for you to find a new career. And I think that's the misconception. We do have those conversations. We don't protect, people that shouldn't be working there. We don't protect, people that, are not showing up for work. I mean, sooner or later, and I tell people all the time, like, look, you're going down a bad path, straighten your shit out, because at some point in time, we're going to lose credibility.
Yeah, I think there is a misconception about that, because I will agree with you that we feel like that as a business owner, you protect the good and the bad regardless. As a business owner, the worst thing is to hire somebody and have to fire them, mm-hmm. because you're hiring them for a specific reason. You fire them, you gotta replace that person, right? And you're right. The way we look at it is, especially when I was younger, as a company grew, I had my managers look at it this way. Look at it from your employee's perspective all the time. If this was a solid employee for 6 months, solid employee for 6 years, all of a sudden something's not happening. He's not being seen. Look at what's going on. Is he going through a divorce? Right. You may not be able to promote him during that time, but talk to him. Sometimes as a business owner, as a manager,
you don't know what's going on.
Yes.
In someone's life.
Sometimes you got to be a counselor too. Because my theory has always been, if you're going to work someplace, why not work for me? Here's my issue with my problem with the union. I think I told you this in a hearing, but we were talking over each other. Is in the first time we met, go back to 2009, I think it was 2009. I'm aggressive, man. I'm aggressive going after businesses. I like aggressive going after new work, right? And I'm trying to grow the company. I want to be the biggest and the baddest in the region. I was already the biggest in the state. I want to be the biggest, period. And I'm hiring the good people. I'm doing right. We get into a little bit bigger new construction. We started with service and repair. Now we're doing bigger stuff. We've building casinos for the tribes. Now we're getting into hospitals. And I get this job for Manhattan Construction. And we only had one real union shop in the state, or in the town at mm-hmm. the time. We beat their price significantly. I did it on purpose because I was bidding the work. I did it on purpose to get my foot in the door. I knew that I was going to break even on the job, or if I get lucky, making 5%, which 5% means after you do warranty work for 12 to 24 months, meaning you're not making anything. But we had cash flow on the backside. I keep hitting this dang mic. We had cash flow on the backside because I felt like I could get it, prove I could do the work, move forward. We get the job, and immediately we start getting protested. Immediately, like they set up people on the corner saying, "Shame on Mullin." That's it, just shame on Mullin. And then they started trying to unionize us. They started going to my shop, harassing my guys.
Now, was this like an open bid job?
Yeah, this is an open bid job. This is off the Dodge reports, right? Mm-hmm. So now they're starting to come in and harass us at our shop and our work. I had guys show up I did radio shows. I had guys show up in my radio shows leaning against my truck. Now, that may not be a big thing where you're from, but in Oklahoma, you lean up against somebody's truck. That means that you don't want to chew with your own teeth anymore. It's just a thing, right? And so that's a true statement.
You can insult everybody but my pickup truck.
Yeah, it's kind of true, right? Don't touch my truck. And I had people show up at my house, and it was just pure harassment. Just went all through me, right? For 2 years, I dealt with this. Of course, we did a great job. Of course, we lost money. Of course, we got more contracts. But we had to deal with that. That was my first taste of the union.
All right, so had it gone down differently, right?
Yeah.
So say that you bid the job and the union approached you and said, "Hey, let's sit down and talk. Like, what is this going to look like? Why can't we work together? Why can't you sign an agreement with us? Here's what we can provide for you. Would you have been open to that at that point?
If they would have made the approach of, hey, we got guys on the bench that we would like to put to work. Can we work out some type of labor agreement with you? My statement would be absolutely. I'm always looking to hire a good guy. How do we want to do this? Do you want us to hire the guys because we're a right to work state? Do you want us to hire the guys, or do we want to pay the haul directly? You tell me how you want to do it, and I would absolutely do it, because why would I turn down good, experienced labor, that guys that know how to do that job?
Right, and then you build a relationship.
Of course.
And you know what? You might collaborate, and you might be a union contractor that's flourishing.
We could have two shops. We could have non-union and union.
We don't want to go down that road.
But I'm just saying. But you could, because not everybody. The right to work state allows people to make a decision if they want to do it or they don't want to do it.
So we had discussions about right to work.
Yeah.
And we agreed to disagree on right to work. I don't support right to work anywhere.
Well, you couldn't.
Couldn't.
You're a union leader.
But I wouldn't. I wouldn't anyways. Yeah. But you know, I think the one thing that we talked about and we agreed upon, this is where it's funny, it gets convoluted. Like even people on my side are like, Sean O'Brien's for right to work. Are you out of your mind? I'm right for right to work. And they pick and choose what they want to hear. I am not for right to work at all. And you coming from a right to work state, we know you like right to work in Oklahoma, right?
I like choice.
Choice, right? But nationwide, I think we agreed upon, hey, this is a state-by-state issue.
Yes.
If people want to fight in the state, let them fight it out in the state. Like we did in Michigan.
Yep.
We did in Michigan. We went right to work, and then we flipped it, right? That's where the battle should be, right? But nationwide, I think you and I agreed, hey, this isn't a nationwide issue. We don't need to go to war over this.
Right.
And I think Rand Paul introduced some bill earlier on and got no support, and, you know,
it's a state issue.
Right.
Let the states make up their mind. Oklahoma, I know Oklahoma well. Oklahoma would say the worst thing you can do is force me to do something. Mm-hmm. You want to lose union membership is you force somebody from Oklahoma to have to, either it's A or B. Well, I think and that would push back. However, if you look at some of the union areas, not necessarily maybe in trades, but if you look at like with the Teamsters, when it comes to UPS or it comes to some of these other driving, or even in the service industry, when people have a decision and they can choose, I think you'll see that your numbers have increased in Oklahoma. In fact, we did the numbers, and they have actually increased when we became a right to work, because people didn't feel like they were forced to do anything.
Yeah, but you know the problem with right to work, and this is the biggest issue I have with it, and it's funny when coming from Massachusetts, Boston,
yeah,
when they passed, the public sectors didn't have to be the Janus decision passed.
What is it?
Janus decision.
I don't have no idea.
It was a Supreme Court decision that
okay.
I think Justice Scalise or whatever was a deciding vote on it, and it basically was right to work nationwide for public sector. And so I'm testifying in the Mass State House, and Massachusetts legislature is both Republican and Democrat. They're pretty much the same. I mean, it's just by zip code, pretty much. So I'm testifying on why we should change. And the governor was Republican Governor Charlie Baker, who did not agree with the Janus decision. He called me up and said, Sean, let's figure this out, because I think all public sectors should have to join the union because of all the benefits that you negotiate, we provide. So I'm testifying before the Senate in Massachusetts, and I'm saying, look, this is why we've got to change the law because of right to work. And one senator goes, what's right to work? What does that even mean? And so I explained it to him this way. I'm like, if I'm driving home tonight in my vehicle and I hit a pothole and blow my tire out, and I call AAA and I'm not a member, should they come out and fix my tire? The guy goes, no, you're not a member. They shouldn't come out and service you. Well, the same holds true, in these right to work states, like UPS, our largest employer. There's right to work states where, and I think we're like 98% in all those right to work states, that they can benefit by all the contractual language that we negotiate, the wage increases, the benefits, the pensions, but they pay a service fee. They're actually not a member of the union. I don't think that's right. If you're paying for something, like you can't watch Netflix unless you're paying for it.
You make a solid point, but I'll make a perspective from my brother. Like, I've been self-employed since I was 20 years old. Mm-hmm. Outside of being self-employed, I hauled sheetrock and delivered sheetrock to job sites since I was 16 years old. When I became self-employed, that's it, right? And my brother, so I don't have any working at other jobs that are union and non-union. I just have my experience, what they did to me as a company when they were really harassing us for 2 years. But my brother, who went to work for a union shop, he's done well for himself, right? But sometimes family's harder to work with. And so my brother went to work.
Especially if you're the boss. I mean, you can't be easy.
It's just true story. True statement.
We're going to organize your office.
Even though most of my employees have been with me for a long, long time. But he went to work for a union shop, and it was right to work state. And he chose not to join the union because he didn't need the benefits. He didn't want to pay for that. And he had his own private investment that he was doing for Roth IRAs and other stuff like that for his retirement. So he chose not to do that. The only benefit that he was receiving was the wages, but the wages were actually below what the market was at the time. I don't know if they are anymore, but because when you take in the dues, and I'm not saying you guys don't provide a good job. You guys are as I say, the union is the largest labor force out there, because you have these labor companies that you have hired day laborers from, like Express Personnel and all this stuff, right?
Bottom of the barrel.
But I'm just saying that you have you guys provide that same labor too. When you got guys on the bench and you're a union shop, you need to size up for jobs. You guys are able to size up and give them more people when you're part of a union. So there's benefits to this, but it doesn't fit everybody. Some people, their personal life is a little bit different, that they don't need. Heck, I'm gonna keep hitting this freaking mic. They don't need all that. They don't need some of the other stuff. And so when you have the right to work, it allows people the freedom to choose. And a lot of people choose to join, but not everybody. But when you tell me I have to do something, what will end up happening is sometimes people won't even apply for that job. Like my brother would have never worked for that company if he was going to be forced to join the union.
But think about this. Under a collective bargaining agreement, whether you're for right to work or not, you're going to get those benefits whether you're a member of the union or not. And I don't think anybody should get those benefits.
They're not going to get health care.
Well, they will.
And all that stuff.
If there's a collective bargaining agreement in place, they get the same benefits.
Retirement from the company, not from the union.
And we've got the best health insurance in the world. That's cheapest around because we have so much buying power with it, and the pensions are guaranteed. No one has ever actually retired off a 401k successfully. I mean, you just can't do it. I mean, if the market's great, you're doing well. If the market tanks, you're doing awful. My point to all this is you're going to get a pension, guaranteed benefit, whether the market's good or not. So we're going to agree to disagree. But let's shift gears for a minute. We've been working.
I'm just going to hit pension. The pensions are good as long as it's managed right.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And there's been a case where the federal government's had to bail out a pension.
And you know why?
I have no idea.
All right, I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
So Democratic Senator Ted Kennedy from my state, 1980, introduced deregulation in the trucking industry. And it was signed on by Senator Joe Biden. And it deregulated the trucking industry. The Teamsters Union lost 400,000 members in the trucking industry. And a lot of good companies were forced into bankruptcy because of deregulation. And what happened with deregulation, it just kept, growing over the years, different industries, different trades. And the last line in credit is in bankruptcies, pension funds, because bankruptcy reform has not been touched in 40 years. So when the pension funds were distressed, which I came out of a distressed pension fund, and Biden put that legislation in there, it funded the majority's pension funds. And everybody said, this is a union bailout. This is a union bailout. And it wasn't a union bailout. It was a problem created by the Democrats in 1980 that, they were criticizing me because I didn't make an endorsement in the election. And, people were saying, we fixed your pensions. Senator Schumer, a lot of them, we fixed your pensions. I'm like, yeah, you did. I said, but it's no different than me playing street hockey in my neighborhood. I broke my mother's window in 1980. 40 years later, I chose to fix it. Should I get accolades for fixing a problem that I helped create?
40 years later.
40 years later.
Yeah, and you got a point. My point is on pensions, though, is that they're only as healthy and as good as it, because that could happen again. The problem is you may not have the appetite of the people that broke it to fix it.
Right.
And so the pensions sometimes we see pensions go bad all the time. You see it go bad.
Well, I think
in which I agree with pensions, by the way. I have no problem with pensions. I agree with pensions. I'm just saying, like, for somebody that's wanting to do something else because they want to be more dependent on themselves, more than people managing a pension, it's scary. For me, someone that's always been self-employed, a pension would scare me to some degree. I know we'll agree to disagree on this, but I want to be in control of my. I want to be in control.
But
of it.
that's
I don't want to worry about it. Oh no, 100%.
That's the way you were brought up. I mean, you're disciplined, right?
Yes.
The average person today going to work for a corporation or a company, they're worrying about, and it's different, right? Because the 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, they're not thinking about retirement. They're trying to buy a house. They're trying to, in some cases, they have to pay towards their medical. The last thing they want to do is take 4 or 5% out of their pocket each week and put it into a 401k.
That's true.
So if you can manage a collective bargaining agreement that has a pension where someone doesn't have to take any money out of their pocket, and
they don't realize it.
They don't realize it, right? So
I got a question for you then.
Sure.
I actually am enjoying this conversation. Why is it that union members can't be part of management of the company?
I think that comes under the law, the National Labor Relations Act.
But I mean, any law can be changed.
You can actually. So I'll give you a for instance. Yeah. So you had solicitors, right, in your company that go out and price jobs out for you, right?
Oh yeah, we call them bidders.
All right. So we call them solicitors. So where I come out of.
Too many people have signs saying no soliciting. So
no soliciting. Yeah. So say they're so you can to a point. You can have people like where I came out of my company. We had people that worked in the field for 15, 20 years that wanted to go work. They wanted them to go work in the office because they knew how to price jobs. They knew what they were looking at. So they maintained their union membership. They maintained their benefits, although they weren't performing the job under the collective bargaining agreement. Happens all the time. All the time.
See, but my thing is that my best managers, in fact, my current CEO, CFO, and COO, I have a couple of COOs, all came in from beginning.
That's the way it should be.
But they couldn't do it. They couldn't be part of the upper management if they had a choice when they were going from management, because you just don't make it to CEO, you just don't make it to CFO or COO, right? Mm-hmm. You don't make it to the management team if overnight. You have to be able to take the promotions. And in my perspective, I've never been part of a union. My perspective is at some point with a union, you're stopped.
It depends what the scope of the agreement says. So every collective bargaining agreement is different. Like, if the scope incorporates that job classification, you could do it. Like working foremen, superintendents, they're all part of unions and construction jobs, even though they're in management functions.
Okay.
It's different everywhere.
So it's all different.
It's different everywhere. So,
Fair enough.
We've been working bipartisan on a lot of legislation, and one of our biggest agendas, and look, the funny thing during the election was, well, not funny, but there's been a lot of rhetoric on both sides. The Republicans want to be the working party of working people. Democrats, working people felt like they've been abandoned by the Democrats. So you've got this whole different narrative this time around. And the biggest thing for us under the Obama administration was the Employee Free Choice Act, which is basically the version of the PRO Act. Mm-hmm. So we had a Democratic House, Democratic Senate, Democratic President. Didn't go anywhere. There were too many bells and whistles in it. And there wasn't an appetite from the administration. Fast forward, PRO Act comes up. Under Schumer was pushing that very hard, Bernie Sanders, and they want to introduce it during the election cycle. And there was a lot of issues in there that people had a lot of problems with, both Republicans and Democrats. And we took a look at this and we were like, this is never going to pass, never going to get bipartisan support on this. And so we've been working with some Republican senators and Democratic senators to come up with a version of the PRO Act that's called the Faster Labor Contracts Act that doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the PRO Act and the Employee Free Choice Act, and it's worked. We've been working bipartisan on it. Is that something that you could support if you took a look at it?
We've already looked at it. It's moving in the right direction that can 100% get Republican support on this.
Right. And the other thing,
and that's because what you said is we call it poison pills.
Right.
The original PRO Act had a lot of poison pills from both sides.
Right.
So you looked at it right. This is never going to pass. When you start taking out the poison pills, and as we say, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Mm-hmm. The version that we're working towards right now is a KISS version. And it's just like, what can both sides agree on? It's like permanent reform. What can both sides agree on? There's some things we're not going to agree on.
Right. And I think we've had a lot of those discussions with everybody's staff involved. I think this is a great opportunity for Republicans to prove they can do something for working people. And again, like you said, you treat your employees good, you pay them top rate, give them the best benefits, right? They're going to be happy. But there's a flip side of that. Not all employers are the same. And we don't solicit union membership. We don't solicit people to join a union. People come to us and say, I'm having a problem. My employer's doing this. We're paying 50% of our medical. We've got no working conditions. They're awful. That's the stuff that we focus on, right? But this Faster Labor Contracts Act would actually prove and demonstrate that the Republicans are going to support working people. And then it actually puts the Democrats in another position where they're either going to embrace it, and if they attack it, what are they demonstrating at that point in time?
Yeah, and by the way, you as a union leader, see, I'm adjusting.
I like it.
It may not be soliciting, but as I said, what happened to us? Right. So not all unions are.
Well, I would never go to someone's home. I think when you go to someone's home, you cross the line.
Agreed. But that's the difference between, and I think you're trying to put a different mindset on how we're approaching this. Two things have to happen though for a successful business, and this is what got me upset the first time we met with you, was that you were demonizing all CEOs. And I agree, not all business owners are the same. I 100% agree with that. I have seen some really, really bad business owners.
I'm dating a former CEO. Well, actually not dating. It's like a life
first
partner,
of all,
right? It's like a life partner.
Hey, first of all,
yeah,
she's so much better looking than you.
Do you know that
you have no choice because you're not doing better than
Do you know that she's been accused of having glaucoma?
I would agree, because I'm looking at you too, and I'm looking at her, and I'm going, how the heck did you pull that off?
You might find this hard to believe. You're not winning any beauty contests either.
I never say I was. I got my wife when she was 18. She didn't know any better. So I know I outpunted my coverage, but she has choices. But anyway,
let's stay focused.
Okay. My point that I'm trying to get to is that both sides have to equally be working for each other. They have to have a mutual respect for each other. And when one side is demonizing the other, and from my chair, my perspective, I'm not setting your perspective, so I'm not accusing, I'm just saying from my perspective, I don't see a lot of CEOs, I'm not saying they haven't been, a lot of CEOs accusing their laborers being corrupt and all this stuff. But you see unions accusing the CEO and the upper management of being corrupt. And the issue is that if your union leaders are accusing the leadership of doing that, then it loses morale in the labor force.
It depends what the situation is, though. Like when you have a company that's raking in the dough and they're crushing it, in which I don't think any of us wanted to take an oath of poverty, right? And we don't have a problem with people making money. But when you see businesses start to diminish, right? People getting laid off, but you're seeing CEO pay increase.
That's a problem.
That's a problem. That's where you'll get the attack from us, right? Because you're saying there's no need for this, and AI is going to be an interesting implementation when it actually happens, because I think you're going to see that layer of management between the CEO and the workers. You're going to see them affected, and that's when you're going to see a whole different opinion.
I agree with that,
and that's where we're going to see like CEOs kind of take a hit, and likely it's going to be a very controversial issue. But getting back to what we're talking to, we only go after CEOs when they are trying to diminish the workforce, diminishing conditions, but their salaries keep increasing and their profits. That's a problem.
It's a structure here. It's a structure, a way the CEO is hired. For instance, as a startup company, when I say startup, we took over a company, but as a new business owner, I went months without getting paid. Months. I went a lot of times over the years, I didn't get paid.
Right.
Because my employees are first. The company's first.
Well,
right?
You don't have a company without employees.
That's exactly right. But that's the way a lot of business owners are. But when you start hiring CEOs because you have a board and you're publicly traded, the CEO is incentivized because the bigger margins they have. It's usually not based on necessarily income as much as their margins. Mm-hmm. The more their pay increases. So when you say AI, as a business owner, what I'm looking at is actually AI is going to cut overhead significantly, because instead of having
profits as well.
That's right. So you could see CEOs' pay go up because a lot of the support team, what we call the support, not the guys in the field, but the ones in the office. The guys in the field are never going to be replaced.
No, but
because
think about this. AI can't turn a wrench.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The guys in the field, they can't drive trucks. AIs can't drive trucks. They can't build things. So the guys in the field are going to be safe. It's the support. We call the support staff. The support staff, which is your payroll company, your compliance officers, your HR department, your benefit management team, all the support, that's going to get more streamlined, which is going to cut out that middle wage. And that middle wage is where the margins sometimes are absorbed because the guy in the field.
Hold that thought for a minute.
Yeah.
So that middle level's cut out. Why does it have to all go to the top?
Exactly.
Why can't it go to the people that are out in the field working?
Exactly. It should. As a business owner, I would. As a business owner, if I had a ratio in my head of what my guys in the field have to make, what I have to support the team, and what our minimum profit margins had to be for me to be able to invest. And I would say most middle to small companies, that's the way they operate. When you get into the large companies, the publicly traded companies, the contract that they hired the CEO is a contract where they hired the CEO. And that contract is the same thing like a labor contract with you. And that's where it has to be looked at as for you guys, even as a union team, you guys have to be looking at that because it should spread, because if I don't do it, my competitor will.
Well, the tough pill to swallow for us is when you're a publicly traded company.
I've never been a publicly traded company, so I don't know.
But when you're a publicly traded company, we deal with a lot of them. And, they're paying out these dividends that, 100% increase in dividends to people that have never done the job. CEOs' pay keeps increasing, and yet they want to fight the people that make them the success they are. That's when the criticism and that's when the attacks happen. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of support out there now for people that are providing goods and services to this country. And I think when you look at what happened during the pandemic, like my union, our largest employer, UPS, had their best year, $100 billion year, right? Because of the pandemic. And our members were going out there providing goods and services, food distribution. Our members were out there providing goods and services, picking up rubbish, providing goods and service. All these corporations are making record profits. And then 2 or 3 years later, when it's time to renew the contract, they want to fight you on pay increases and additional contributions to the pension fund. All the while prior to this, they're calling you heroes and our employees are the best. It's like, that's when the criticism, that's when the divide happens.
But you brought up dividends. Once again, from a perspective, from in a person. When I invest in companies, I'm investing based on a return guaranteed. Well, nothing's returned, but it's a gamble. So if I invest $1,000 or I invest $1 million, whatever it is, as an investor, if the company is successful, I'm investing in that company where they can grow and expand and hire more union more union employees, right? But in return, I've taken a gamble by investing in there, and their contract with me said that these certain percentages they hit, my dividend increases. So they're under contract too, because the company wouldn't have been able to grow at the rate it was growing without investors. So the dividends had to be paid to the people that's investing, that's allowing them to hire more union employees. So you got to look at the contract on both sides.
But that growth is a result of the performance by the union members.
But honestly, it is 100%. But it wouldn't have been able to grow if investors didn't invest. Well, and the contract, there's 2 contracts. So the contract is I can't, if it says I'm going to pay 100% dividends, which I've never got that before, but if I did, I'd sure invest in that. But if my contract says that I'm getting paid X amount of dividends based on the margins of my investment that I put in each quarter, then that's a contract. And that isn't renegotiated. You can't renegotiate. That contract is for the life of my investment. Now, if you want to have a second round of investors and you're going to offer a stock or a B stock, then that second round of investors you can have a different agreement with. But the original round of investors, you don't. You can't renegotiate that one. So they're in a pickle, just like the negotiating they have with a union. Once they negotiate that deal, it's non-negotiable again, right? It's negotiated. We're negotiating. It's done. It's signed. We're not negotiating it again until the contract's up.
So I'm glad to hear that, we agree on that Fair Labor Contracts Act and that we're working bipartisan on it. Did you ever think you were going to be a politician?
No. Do I look like one? Do I act like one?
No, you certainly don't act like one.
No. So And have I shared a story with you why I got into politics?
I think you did, but I think the audience needs to hear it.
So we have a saying in the company, the biggest, you're never going to change anything you're willing to tolerate, which is what you do, right?
Right.
You see things that's a problem and you go negotiate it to fix it for your members because you're not willing to tolerate it. I respect that. I had a manager years ago, my first company that I bought. This is back in 2000, July of 2000.
And how old are you at this time? 25, 24?
23.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 23. No, actually, I was 22. I was about ready to turn 23. It was, so anyways, I'd bought the company. I'm trying to manage it. I thought I knew how to manage. I figured like I was just a micromanager. So I was playing whack-a-mole. I was a firefighter.
You definitely strike me as a type that micromanages.
I don't. I'm actually the most least micromanager. Am I not? The least micromanager.
I hire. Say that he just looked at me like
I hire you to do a job, and I don't want to manage you. If I hire you to do a job and you're the manager, you manage.
I'm the same way. Everybody thinks I am a micromanager.
Yeah.
What I do is I get up and I oversee. Like if I don't like something, why are we doing this over here?
I'll question it. That's right. But I hire you because I hired the best person for that job, and I expect you to perform. And if you don't meet those expectations, then we'll have a conversation. But I hired this lady. She wasn't performing. Every time I'd go in, she would just puke problems. And I would go to that office every other day. So I was driving there back and forth every other day. And I wrote on her calendar, you're never going to change anything you're willing to tolerate. Like, I don't mind you having problems, but come to me with the problem and the solution, and I'll tell you if I like the solution or not.
Solution's the best part.
Right. But if you just come with a problem that I've got to fix, you're not managing. So I wrote that down on her calendar. Fast forward 2011. We were installing portable water treatment plants. And because there was underneath the Clean Water Act, there was a lot of small municipalities that couldn't meet the EPA requirement. And they were getting fined every day by the Obama administration. And these are small municipalities that can't just pass a bond. I mean, when I say small, they're
remortgaging their houses to make payroll in some cases.
Yes, I mean, yeah, the council is trying to figure out how to be responsible for it. They can't go pass a bond because it has like 12 people that's got to pay for this. And I'm not kidding when I say that, because small towns, a lot of people live in rent houses, but a lot of your main landowners are only owned by a few people. They're the ones that's going to be paying the lion's share of this. And so they can't pass a bond. They're getting fined. So we invented a piece of equipment that could put their discharge, meaning their service side of it, going to the customer. We could bring them up to compliant. Obama said that he was going to pass. He had shovel-ready jobs through regulation. That was his quote. I remember it. And he changed the clean water drinking standard by just a small percentage, and it regulated that company out of business. Now, that was the fastest growing company we had. My wife and I had invested personally well into 7 figures on top of it. It was 18 months old. We were operating all over the United States in 18 months because it was a huge need. We'd never been fined. We'd never had any issues. Monday or Tuesday of April 2011, the EPA came in. Friday morning, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I got to call all these employees that came to me. I'd invested all this money. We had, I don't know how many red F-150s around the country, trailers. We had a warehouse. We had a huge warehouse.
You were like the version of Landman back then.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Well, not that much, but I wanted to be like that. And they basically shut us down. I had to call all the employees, and there was a guy on the phone, on the news, which I'd never even been to a political event. Didn't own a tie, didn't own a suit, never was non-political whatsoever.
Could you even name who your Congress people were back then?
Had no clue. Not. I couldn't name one of them. Not one of them. I couldn't name a single one. Not even my senator. I couldn't name any of them. I voted, but I voted every 4 years. I never voted on the midterms, and I wasn't involved in any type of organization, anything. But I was having to make a phone call to basically tell everybody, you can come to Oklahoma, we'll give you a job, or we're going to have to give you a severance package and figure it out. I was ticked, and a guy who came on the TV named John Boehner. I didn't know who he was. He was Speaker of the House at the time. I had no idea. I didn't know. I mean, I know John now personally. I didn't know who he was. And he said that we got a job package.
He used to cry all the time, remember?
He was pretty emotional.
He used to cry all the time.
Yeah, he was pretty emotional. He still does. He's an emotional guy. But he goes, we have a job package, quote, that's going to create 500 jobs or 5,000 jobs. I was like, I'm laying off a few hundred people right now. You didn't do anything. You're killing us. So some faceless bureaucrat out there is doing this. August of 2011 was the first political event I went to and stood up and said I was running for Congress. I have a clue what I was doing. There's 8 people there. Everybody's dressed in suits, and I'm dressed in a pair of Wranglers and a button-up shirt. because that's how you see me. You see me dressed,
Yeah.
right? That's what I dress most of the time. And we were successful at it. If I knew what I was getting myself into, Sean, I don't think I would have done it, because don't think for a second that dirty politics don't exist.
Oh, it's awful.
I get into office, win office. Now, I've never been audited in my life at this point. My saying is if I do things underneath the table, my employees will do things underneath the table. We'll always operate on top of the table. We don't operate in gray area. Gray causes problems and is open for interpretation. So I always was way above board on everything. We paid well our share of taxes, but 6 months into my office and being in office the first time, I get audited.
Well, after our first fight, I got audited.
Did you really?
No.
Oh, I was like, well, I might have made that phone call.
My mother. Hey, yeah, you called. My mother after
one of my best friends is Jason Smith, the chair of Ways and Means.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Tell him I said hello. Anyways, no, but after our first fight, I didn't know my mother watched C-SPAN.
Yeah.
She goes, and she's an strong Irish woman from the projects in Charlestown. She's like, I saw you on TV today. I'm like, you did? Where? Is there something wrong with you? She says. I go, what do you mean? She goes, that argument, the fight with the senator. Is there something wrong with you? I go, why? What's up? She's like, thanks to you, now we're all getting audited.
You didn't though.
No.
But
probably will after this.
Yeah. 6 months into my first term, my first year in office, I get a letter from the IRS, and they stopped all my trucks, all my semis, and they accuse us of using red dye diesel, which red dye is farm. We have a bunch of Tracos, a bunch of equipment. Sure. We're able to use red dye. They stopped all. Now we have a lot of big trucks.
It's just basically number 2 jet fuel, right?
Right. Yeah. Sort of. So we put it. They stopped all of our trucks on the road. Couldn't move. They shut us down. They went by one by all of our trucks and drawed a sample out of all the tanks. Of course, we didn't have any red dye in any of them, but that was the first one. 2 weeks later, we get a call from the IRS. They're coming in to audit us. 3.5 years. They audited us for 3.5 years. At the exact same time, the Department of Labor came in and said they were auditing us the way that we pay our guys. 3.5 years. Then they sent me a notice, Sean, and said that I can't go to my office without giving them proper notice because of my federal employee status. If I simply said hi, it would be intimidating a federal agent doing their job, and I would be charged. So they took over my office and my corporate office. I had to make phone calls before I could go. They were there for 3.5 years until the day President Trump was sworn into office as Trump 45. They left, never got a fine, never got any.
And you think this is all a result of retaliation for
why else would they
becoming
leave?
A congressman?
Why else would they leave? They left that day. They left literally the day he was sworn into office. We sent them letter after letter saying, they left their personal effects. I still got one of the guys' family photo that he left on my desk because he was there so long. And I put it all in boxes. We got but we said we're going to destroy it all. We didn't destroy it all. We're still holding on to it. Fast forward, Biden gets into office. 6 months after he gets into office, Christy and I's restaurants started getting audited.
No kidding.
Yes. Now, I'm sure it's coincidental.
Sure
has nothing to do with it. But my point is if I knew what I was going to get myself into, I would have probably never ran for office because it cost us a ton. Can you imagine being audited by the Department of Labor and by the IRS for 3.5 years? How much money that cost the company, how much money that cost Christy and I personally. So if I knew what I was getting myself into, I would have never ran for office. However, this isn't my lifestyle. This isn't what I'm going to do. I'm not going to grow old in this job. I love building things. I love employees. I love seeing growth. But it's an honor to be here. When I'm here, I'm all in. And I don't financially have to do it. It's not my job.
Right.
But I get to do it. And while I'm here, man, I'm as passionate and all in as I can possibly be. But if I knew it, I don't think I could have ever taken our company through.
Well, I think the other thing too, there's one real important factor in all this, the effect and the sacrifice on your family.
Yeah, well, that's when Christy and I got into politics, we had 3 kids. The oldest was 7, 6, and 4. I took them to school every single day with me. Every single day they got in the truck. We left the house by 6:50.
That's an Oklahoma Cadillac, an F-350.
Yeah, it was actually an F-350, a red. And we would go to the court. We'd go to my office, and they would sit at the conference table and eat breakfast, and then go back in the shop and play with all the guys.
Right.
They would go to school filthy. My wife would get so mad at me. And then their school was just a few blocks from my office, actually a few blocks from my jiu-jitsu gym. They could walk across the road and go right into the jiu-jitsu gym. And I loved my family. I loved my life.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Coaching my kids as wrestling, coaching their football, coaching their baseball. I get in the office, all that stops. Since then, we've collected 3 more kids. So we went from 3 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because every time I came home, my wife couldn't leave me alone because I'm such a strapping, good-looking guy.
Here we go.
And
she got glaucoma.
Truth is, I say we have 3 that we chose and 3 we got stuck with. So we got 3 adopted and 3 that came natural. And the life has been chaotic, but we love it. And here's what we do before I ever run. We sit down as a family, and every one of my kids have veto power.
That's great.
Every single one of them, including my wife. I'm not saying that we got to collectively agree. If any one of my kids say we're done, I'm done. I mean, done. Like I'll walk away tomorrow, no issue. I'm done. Like it's finished.
Well, I think what's important is that you recognize that this isn't your passion. This isn't, when you hear you're passionate, you're doing your job, you're passionate, but this isn't who defines you. This position doesn't define you. And same in my role, there's going to be a certain time where I don't feel that I'm influential or effective. I'm walking away.
Yeah.
And I'm going to enjoy
That's
life.
That's it.
You know?
When I'm just maintaining, I'm done.
Yeah. Because you're doing a disservice to yourself, number one.
Yeah.
And more importantly, the constituency you're elected to represent. And, I think we can witness it now.
Yeah.
There's a reason why there's pensions in government. People should take them.
Yeah, that's true. We are. I tell people you can vote, and 50% of the time you can get it right.
Right.
So it doesn't take much to vote. It's what you do when you're not voting. It's the relationships that you make. It's the relationship that you and I have. The relationships we make with the relationships you have with the White House pays more dividends for you and your members than anything you ever do in Congress.
Right.
Would you agree?
I would agree. The relationships are important.
They're the most important thing.
And when you establish credibility,
yes.
And you can have disagreements, because I have disagreements with President Trump. I have disagreements, but if I have a disagreement, I'm not going to publicize and attack someone. I'm going to say, look, we don't agree with this. This is what'll work for us. Can you do this?
And you make the phone call privately.
And it's credibility.
Yeah, it's credible. And so there's a lot to be said for that. So for me, when we're just maintaining, then we're dying. It's the same thing with the company.
We call it babysitting the organization. If you're just going to sit there and babysit it, not grow it,
leave.
Then you're better off leaving.
That's right.
So listen, I want to thank you for coming on Better Bad Ideas, Senator Markwayne Mullin.
I love the name of
my
this,
friend.
by the way. Yeah.
I got one question.
Yeah.
And I ask all guests this. If you could have lunch with someone, not someone that's deceased or a family member or someone you miss, if you could have lunch with someone, who would that someone be?
Wow, that's a good. Not deceased. I've been asked that question, not deceased, but deceased or not, and I've always said RFK. I'm sorry, not RFK, Teddy Roosevelt. I currently living.
Tough question, isn't it?
It is.
I know what you're thinking. You're going to say Sean O'Brien.
Yes, that's right. No, I would. I know this sounds funny, but I would like to pick Dana White's brain.
Well, Dana's a friend, personal friend.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Dana and I got sideways a little bit.
Right.
And not that we're sideways at all anymore, but I would like to just pick his brain because he took a sport that I loved during the time when I was fighting that wasn't profitable. It wasn't making any money. No fighter was making a living at it, really, for the most part. And he made it into what it is. And he did it. I mean, he's the face of it. He's been the driving force of it. I would like to pick his brain and say, what'd you see that other people didn't see?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, like the slap. Have you seen the slap thing? That's his.
By the way, I would play a lot of sports. I know it, but I would never do that. That is the dumbest thing to not be able to move.
That's going to be bigger than the UFC.
It's getting big. But I would say that would be the guy I'd like to sit on today. sit down and have lunch with.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, you heard it first here. Better Bad Ideas. Thank you very much, Senator Mullin.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
It. Yeah.